Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We're back. I need to make a post. Let's see. Let's see. So today we're going to do more MCP development. Or at least that's the plan. Assuming nothing comes up. Which it shouldn't. Need to... Gotta set all the statuses, you know? Let's see. Lunch. Alright. Look, it's Suhas and Network Bib. Hello, fellas. How are y'all doing? Yep, I'm back. I know, I kind of have a weird stream schedule, don't I? One of these days, maybe it'll change. But this works pretty well for now. How bro is faster than me? I have no idea. Network Bib is kind of a wonder. His ability to show up seconds after I start the stream is it's uncanny. Yes, I love it when the problem is just a skill issue. Actually though, you know, to be honest, that's not a bad place to start your assumptions about things. You know, like before you start thinking it's something's wrong with someone else or something you're working with, just assume I'm the problem and then work from a place of trying to disprove that you are the problem, right? So start with the hypothesis that you're the problem and then do work to try to prove that you're not the problem. It's a pretty good place to start. Suhas backstory. Yeah, I don't know what you mean, Suhas. There's no backstory to it. Not that I'm aware of. Alright, so I don't really 100% remember where we left off. I'm pretty sure we got the tool working. But I'm pretty sure we have this working. There's some questions I need to answer about this. Oh, this is where we needed. This is okay. So I got this working, but I need to return the total number of pages. So in here, I don't know. When you have this many arguments to a method, you should probably have an object that represents the parameters for this method, but I'm going to leave it be. Okay, so this is going to return I guess the easiest way to do this would just be to... Like, the easiest way to do this would just to be to return an object. That's literally just... Oh no, let's see how this feels. So the easiest way to do this would be able to say records and then total pages like that. In which case we don't need to yield this. And then in which case we go back to tools. Then I'll probably call this page, and then we'd say well, we'd have to do oh, this is so ugly. This is so ugly. JJ Davis, what's up, man? How are you? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping into the stream. Appreciate you. Also, I am drinking, since this is called Code Coffee and Chat, I do have some coffee going on, not like espresso or anything. I'm just drinking a coffee protein shake, so I've checked that box. We have chat, we have coffee, we have code. Although I'm just not super happy about the way this I'm not super happy about the way this method is working at the moment. Kokachi Gaming, what are you coding? I'm working on a model context protocol server. If you're familiar, if you've done any work in like the generative AI space, MCP is currently like the hot new thing. And so I'm trying to learn about it, and I feel like the best way you can learn about stuff is to build something with it. So I'm building one, you know? But I'm trying to work through. I'm working through a particular problem right now where I'm like fetching records. I'm fetching like a page of records at a time, and I want to be able to return all those records or all the pages of records that I fetched to the LLM. But I also want the LLM to know how many total pages there are. And I don't know if maybe that's just dumb. Maybe that's just something I shouldn't worry about. Kogachi Gaming. Yeah, keep going. Thanks for the encouragement, Kogachi. That's so nice of you. I think I'm saying your username right. Maybe Kokachi Gaming. Suhas and Network Bib are currently competing to see who will be the first one to show up for the stream, which is not necessary. You guys do not have to be I don't expect anybody to show up for a stream ever. So the fact that you ever get here in the first place is appreciated. No one has to race to be the first. All right. Well, I guess I'm going to do this for now, and maybe... How about I just add a little note here for myself to do? This feels stupid, Steven. Think about a better way. But what this will allow me to do is if I go back over here, then what I can do is I can say, okay, we can say const record of page.records. Isn't type inference in TypeScript is just so wonderful. Then we can come down here and then do this, that. And then we should be able to say what should we be able to say? Well, I guess what we should be able to do is we should have a local variable here. We can say let total pages equal 0 like that. And then each time we iterate, I know this is kind of dumb, but each time we iterate, we will just set that local variable. So the last iteration should always end up in this variable. I know, it's not elegant. It's kind of dumb. I get it. Then oh no, actually we can just do this. We don't have to have a local variable. We can just use our response. We can say response dot total pages like that. And we'll just set that each time. So now we should be getting the correct number of total pages. We can remove that to do. All right, let's test this now. So npm run inspect. The scam website Nikki sent me is probably generated by AI. Yeah, maybe. You can't really tell the difference between AI generated and I mean, it's hard, right? It's like, I get the one thing I will say is that a lot of AI generated websites or vibe coded websites have a V0 Tailwind plus Shad CN UI look. If you guys know what I'm talking about, I can show you actually here. Let me just show you. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, but it's like Shad CN, that UI library. A lot of the, like if you ask Lovable or anybody to generate any of these AI products to generate front ends for you, they kind of all have this vibe with some sort of Tailwind skin or theme applied to it. I do not watch much anime, but I've had a lot of anime recommended to me. I have been playing Pokemon at night, like before bed, as like a way to help me like go to sleep. Chuka Wuka. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it really is. And I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with that UI look, right? Like it is a pretty UI. Like it looks good. But it just seems like if you ask any AI model, they're going to probably produce something that looks like that. They all really love Tailwind too. I think I've said this. I made a short where like all AIs love Tailwind. They don't want to write CSS. They want to write Tailwind. Hello, Ducky Dev. How are you? Good to see you, man. All right, let's see if we can move on from this tool finally. Because the next tool I want to write, I'm going to write a couple more tools that are pretty simple. But the last, I guess, the tool that I'm most interested to write is going to have to do with querying or searching for records. Let's see, users, and we'll get their username, and we'll just default to the defaults. Here we go. So we have. It's kind of hard to view things in this little tiny pane. Let's see, JSON viewer. Is there some sort of online? There we go. There we go. Although I don't like the fact that it's not dark mode. But yeah, so basically now I have app ID, I have my records, which shows the data that's stored in the application. And then down here at the very bottom, I should also have, oh my goodness, these ads are just unbelievable. Let's see, JSON editor maybe? Maybe this will be better. There you go. Yep. Down here at the bottom, I have, oh my gosh, the scrolling, it won't stop. I have the total pages, which is all I wanted. Because the reason why that's important is because I'm only going to return one page of records by default. So I want the LLM to be able to understand, hey, there is 150 pages here. What page number would you like to get, and how many pages would you like to get from that page number? So basically allow the user, if they want to page through data. I don't think this tool is going to be very helpful, honestly, but I think it kind of needs, this functionality needs to be here for what I'm building. Tudai, I'm learning React. Would you say it's easy on React? Because I'm feeling that way. You mean 2D, are you talking about you feel like AI is good at writing React? Suhas, because better documentation. Why does AI prefer one tool over the other? I think it just has to do with the training, right? Like, I think Anthropic talks about how, like, XML style tags are particularly useful to their language models just because their training data has a lot of it, a lot of XML like structured text in it. So I think it just is based on the training data. So yeah. Which is kind of funny because you would think, you know, like CSS, there's large amounts of documentation about CSS. So it's kind of interesting that it leaned towards using Tailwind, which just means that it's just a lot of these models has been trained on a lot of code, and a lot of that code utilized Tailwind, which I think just speaks to the popularity of Tailwind, if anything else. Really, right? Not that there's anything wrong with Tailwind. It's just I think it's funny that AI is like Tailwind. That's all. I'm kind of a vanilla CSS guy myself. Why did my microphone volume all of a sudden jumped? I'm not sure why it did that. Sorry about that. If I was blowing your ears out there, for whatever reason, it jumped up on me. Tailwind is cool. Yeah, Tailwind is very cool. And I've used Tailwind on 2 projects. Gray and Kit. In Vim in CMD. I have seen it all finally. This is not CMD. This is PowerShell. Gray and Kit. This is the new Windows terminal. And I'm using PowerShell. So get it right. What are you trying to say, man? Are you trying to say that if you're on a Windows machine and you use PowerShell or use Windows Terminal, you're not allowed to use NeoVim? Do all the Linux and Mac developers have the only claim to NeoVim? You're not actually the first person that has made that comment though before. Somebody else said that exact same thing in a previous stream at one point or another. All right, I'm going to come back to these questions because I don't actually know how I feel. And so, I don't know. We'll vibe it out like the AI coders do, like the vibe coders do. It just does weird things when I try to use it. Oh, well, that's fair. But yeah, I've got it working, man. I put in the time and the effort. I can debug .NET. I can debug JavaScript apps, TypeScript apps. I can do test runner for Playwright. I've got a test runner for .NET code. It did take a minute, you know. I mean, I had to work through some configuration challenges, but it's working, man. Which, no judgment on what you like. I'm one of those people that like I believe in like an inclusive dev tooling culture. Like, use the shit that you like, you know? So, no judgment. I know people probably judge me, but I don't return the favor. Uh, okay, so that was the Get Records tool. I think the next thing I'm going to implement is getting reports. So I need to be able to get the names of reports, and then I need to be able to get the report data by name. And so there's a couple endpoints in this API. I've shown this API a couple times. No worries if you don't know what this API is for. That's not really relevant to the fact. The more important thing here is I'm building a model context protocol. The API I'm building it with is just because I know this API really well. So we want to get reports. Where's that at? So we want to get reports. Serenity. Hello, Serenity. This is the first time I've seen you in the chat, so appreciate you saying hi. Welcome. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna basically return the reports, and I'm really just gonna return. I don't know if I need the app ID. I think I just need the ID. And no, I think I just need the name. I just need to return the name. And the reason for that is because the reports are only really... This endpoint is only useful for figuring out what reports are in an app. And then what I'll do is I'll use the report name to look up the report ID to get the actual data. And I think this data structure is probably okay for the LLM to make use of it. I don't know 100% though. Network bib Steven is going blind. I see you, man. I see you. You said 50 viewers. Goddamn, yeah. We must have some people who are interested in hanging out with us. Serenity, just subscribe. Appreciate you, Serenity. No pressure to subscribe though, but appreciate you having you here. Appreciate your subscription. Let's see. Abu. I'm sorry if I'm screwing up your username. You said, what is you recommend? Should we learn lots of technology or should we master some specific technology? So I'm not going to lead you astray by like trying to give you like the advice you should always follow. So I'm just going to give the advice that I have followed, which is I have dabbled in a lot of different things that are tangentially related to technology, programming, and coding. So I've kind of explored a lot. But if I had to go get a job, like if someone today asked me like, what can you do for my business? I would say I can write you web applications with C# or TypeScript, and I can build you automated testing solutions, right? Using Playwright, particularly. So like I feel like my opinion would be, you should always be exploring. You should always be learning. You should always be seeing what's on the edge, right? Like kind of what I'm doing right now, which is I'm trying to learn about this whole model context protocol thing that's kind of becoming really popular. Doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily become an MCP developer, but I would try to then focus on some things that you really enjoy, right? That you like to do, and go deep there, right? Like I could go pretty deep on building automated testing solutions with Playwright. Right, in a conversation, or I could go pretty deep with talking about like minimal APIs in .NET because I've written a lot of them. So that would be kind of my advice, is like constantly be exploring. But if you can start to figure out what it is you like to do and the things you like to work with and kind of narrow, it's helpful. It's helpful for you as an individual to have like a deep knowledge in something, but then it's also helpful if you want to actually get a job. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, companies, recruiters, they're going to want to bucket you, right? They're going to want to say, okay, this guy's a TypeScript dev who specializes in React. This guy is a quality engineer who specializes in Selenium for .NET, right? They're going to, recruiters, hiring managers, they're going to want to sort of bucket you. It's just the way the world is, you know? Network Bib, like the stream. Well, that's not, Network Bib, thank you for encouraging the people to like the stream, although there's no pressure to like the stream. 2D, will you rate my project? Sure, man. If you send it, we have a Discord, so if you just join our Discord and send it to me there, I'd be happy to take a look at it. I actually have kind of a list. I have a weather app from one of my chatters that I need to look at named Stefan. And I also have a cool, like, what is it? It's almost like a Twitch stock market app from a guy named Router that I need to look at. So sure, send them my way. Let's see, Rag Waga Soray. I'm just gonna say Eugene because I'm not sure I can pronounce your first name properly, and I don't want to offend you. So Eugene, hello. Thanks for saying hi. Appreciate the wave. Serenity, what are your tech stack? Serenity, I primarily work in TypeScript and C#. So if like today I was going to sit down and build a web app, I would probably, if I can build it in a client server architecture, then I'm probably going to build it in, I'm probably going to build the front end in Vue, like a V app, like a very simple Vue client side rendered app. And I'm going to probably build the back end in a minimal API in .NET. That's probably what I'm going to do. Because that's where I feel comfortable. That's what I feel productive with. If you ask me, though, to do it in other things, I would be willing to learn, you know? Suhas, explore more, settle when you like something. Yeah, that kind of sums up, Suhas, what I was trying to express. You said it much more elegantly and much more concisely, so I appreciate you. Suhas, you should create a stream, just look at people's projects. Yeah, that'd be fun. Totally. Yeah, I've got like I said, I've got 3 or 4 now that I need to take a stab at looking at. So we will definitely make time to do that at some point. All right, let's go over to my server here and add our next tool. So we have a tool for getting apps. We have a tool for getting fields, for getting records. Now we're gonna add a tool for getting reports. So server.tool. And shout out to the whoever's building the TypeScript SDK, this guy, for the model context protocol. This SDK is very nice to work with. The built-in support for doing like Zod as the validation, as kind of a validation for the tool, is very nice. So we should master something at first place, then we should explore other tech. I think Abu, yes. I think yes. If you're limited in time, probably yes, do that. But I think you're gonna, Abu, I think you're gonna have to work on trying to figure out how you can balance going deep on something while also keeping your ears and your eyes up, right? Keep being heads up and being mindful about what's going on around you, and kind of exploring and learning at the same time, right? So like let's say you have 5 hours to study a day, or let's just say you have 2 hours to study a day, right? Maybe you spend an hour and a half focusing on like the thing you want to be a master at, and then you focus like give yourself 30 minutes to explore something new that caught your eye, or you saw on LinkedIn, or you saw a short about. Like, try, because if you go deep on something and you learn something really if you learn something really deeply, but your head's down, right? Your head's down, you're ignoring the world around you, you might miss an opportunity. You might miss something you find you even like better, or that you want to pursue more. Because that's just how technology is, right? That's just how science and technology is that there's always people pushing the boundaries. Yeah, what Suha says, you want to stay focused, but you don't want to get totally tunnel visioned. You know? Hey, there's Stefan. What's up, Stefan? How are you doing, man? Good to see you, dude. We have a little bit of a crowd here today, it seems. But some familiar faces. RV. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna. I want to try to pronounce your first name, but I don't want to offend you by just utterly butchering it. I have a chatter named Kazim who sometimes shows up in my chat, and he gets a big kick out of me trying to mispronounce Indian names. And apparently, I'm very, very good at mispronouncing Indian names. So I'm just gonna call you RV. So nice to see you, RV. Thanks for joining the chat, man. All right, retrieve. Look at Copilot. Copilot's trying to be so helpful. Let's see. Retrieves a list of reports from the OnSpring instance for a particular app. Wonderful. And then I think the only thing we need to take in as an argument here is just app name. And this needs to be required. I'm curious if anybody here has worked with Zod. Suhas, you are. Well, I appreciate. I'm glad another person agrees with Kazim's opinion. It's really funny when foreigners try to pronounce Indian or Chinese names. Well, I'm glad people can get a laugh. I hope people laugh at it. I hope they don't take it as an offense, because it's not. It's definitely not meant that way. Here we go. And you guys, okay, what I was trying to say is, for those of you who have worked with Zod, does anybody else kind of find, so like when I was first using Zod in the very first project I used it in, I was always looking for like a required method like this, and then I learned that you don't use required, you put a minimum length on it, and that's how you make it required. Which I don't know, does that seem like, is that intuitive? I don't know. I mean, I get it. It's kind of redundant, right? To have a min and then have a required method, but Lucas Pro, finally, an interesting stream on my feed. Oh, well, nice, dude. I'm glad I showed up in your stream. Welcome to the stream, man. We are we're drinking a coffee-flavored protein shake. I'm talking to you all, and we're trying to learn about MCP by building a MCP server. Stefan, have you heard of T2SDE? I have not. What is that, Stefan? I've not heard about that. Abu, I'm a MERN stack dev looking for a job. That's why I'm trying to master what I already know, but I also love to explore something new. Yeah, and I think, Abu, there's a great... So the MERN stack was something I learned by going through Free Code Camp's curriculum. Actually, I bet I can find like the first. Let me try to find it. What did I call it? I think I called it all the things. All the things. This was like the first end-to-end MERN stack app I built. Like that wasn't totally it's hosted on a free render site, but it wasn't totally specified. Like I kind of put it together. Which is not to say that I want to like show off how great this app is, because there's really nothing that great about it. It's just a to-do app. But what I was going to say is, I think, Abu, to answer your question, or maybe to add a little bit more context to your question, is like, if you know MERN stack well enough to get a job, like, I think that's where you have to kind of come to a decision about, like, do I keep doubling down on learning more MERN stack stuff, or do I start to kind of now broaden, right? Like, have you heard of that term, like T-shaped developer, right? Let me hold on. Let me try to draw on the screen here if I can make this work. Yeah, like the T-shaped developer, right? The idea of like you want to be like deep knowledge, right? But then have a breadth of experience. breath of XP, right? That's kind of like the ideal world, I feel like, you know. So I feel like if you're, you know, if you're down here on your Mern stack knowledge, right? Maybe it's time to start broadening the experience. But only you can make that judgment, right? Stefan T2SDE. Okay, I can search it up. Although everybody, you can blame Stefan for getting me off topic. Oh, it's some sort of Linux thing. So what do you use it for? It's a distribution kit. Yeah, I'm scanning this article right now and I'm thinking this is all going over my head. I think my dog is having a dream right now. I think he's asleep, but he's barking in his sleep. Yeah, he's for sure barking in his sleep right now. It's a system development environment. Okay, very cool. Abu, you could use required property as well in Zod. Oh, okay, well maybe it's deprecated now, because it doesn't seem to be on that object anymore. Required. Do I know how to spell? Required. Yeah, huh. Maybe they removed it. I don't see it anymore. Anywho, I just thought that was interesting. Something I learned and thought, you know what? Okay, so I want a tool that looks like that. And now instead of get records, this will be get reports. And here's something I think that's interesting. If you're working on model context protocol, this is something that I've been thinking about. So like here, this is a good example to illustrate this thought. Is okay, so I have this reports endpoint. This reports endpoint takes the app ID, right? So I have to make, let me see. I want to get, where's the do I not have an example request of how to get port data format? Do I not have examples? Okay, here we go. So the way this API works is you need to get reports for a particular app and you need to specify the app ID. The problem is when a user is talking to the LLM, they're not going to say, get me reports for app 195, right? So there's sort of, when you're building your context, or in my mind, when you're building the MCP server, you kind of have to think about building it at this layer of like, you're talking in natural language. So the inputs to your tools, you probably need to kind of craft them around accepting strings of text. And then as the developer, you sort of need to do the massaging to translate that to whatever needs to be done to get the information back from the system you're talking to. Which is kind of interesting because a lot of APIs these days, they're not built with like LLMs in mind, right? They were built with like a developer in mind. Just kind of interesting. Miha, what language? This is TypeScript is what I'm working in right now. Abu, I think I'm ready for a job as a junior Mern dev, but I want to extend my knowledge further more before joining. Yeah, of course, man. I feel like then I think far more people underestimate their job readiness, right? That's probably, like, I feel like far too many people who are learning to code probably wait too long before starting to try to get a job, in my opinion. It just seems like there seems to be a lot of people out there on the interwebs that are very competent people at building stuff who still claim to be trying to learn, right? Or like they're preparing themselves for work. But Stefan, gonna go watch Dexter. Nice, dude. Stefan, have a nice day, y'all. See you, Stefan. Enjoy Dexter. Great show. Great show. Suas, model context protocols like an API for AI, so to give it access to tools and information to the internet. Correct. Exactly. Yeah, it's not. Is model context protocol is more about creating some sort of shared language between a client and server architecture, right? So that you can share, right? Like if you built a bunch of tools to interact with Postgres, then you can now share that MCP server, right? All those tools with all the existing MCP clients. So it's like it avoids having to like everybody has to reinvent like an agent framework all the time. Suas, in the future, a lot of people are going to use AI. Yeah, I would agree with that statement. I would say most people use AI today, they don't even know that they're using it. Because a lot of things fall in that AI bucket, right? Like generative AI is kind of like a newer thing. It's this newer idea, right? But like when you go on Netflix and it recommends you shows and movies to watch, to me that falls in the AI bucket. People might say that's more machine learning, but that's what underpins LLMs is machine learning, neural networks. All right, let's focus for a minute. Let's try to implement this tool, huh? Before the stream's over. Otherwise, the stream is going to end and I will not have anything to show for it. Okay, export function, get reports tool. That's going to take in a client. That's going to take in an app name. And then it's going to return a function. And this is my actual tool. Okay, so this is probably going to be wrapped in a try catch. Like that. And then we're also going to check, we're just going to make sure the OnSpring client isn't null. And you could probably make the argument that I should check that the app name is an actual like non-empty string. But I'm gonna trust the validation that's happening at the tool level. Okay, now this should be much more straightforward than the records tool. So the first thing, let's handle the error case. So if there is an error, we don't need to check that. We can just log it. Whoops. We're gonna log it, and then let's actually just take from what we're doing for the other tools. We basically want to do this exact same thing. Copy pasta. But instead of unable to get records, it should say unable to get reports. And if it is an error and the error does have a message, then we're going to append that. Otherwise, we're just going to return that generic message. And then here, what we need to do is we need to get the app ID, like this. And then we need to say, yeah, we just need a list of strings. Yes. Yeah, I think we need to page. I think this is this is a page response. So we need to be able to page over, because there could be a lot of reports in a particular app. There could be hundreds of reports in an app. Abu, email, Z, string, required error, email. Oh, interesting. You can use the. Oh, interesting. So Abu just taught me something. Okay. So in Zod, you can do. Was it my server? So instead of min.1, you're saying I can pass in, what is that, an object? And I can say required error. So does that mean, so that means I don't have to put the minimum value here then? Interesting. So the pure presence of that message or that object with that property set makes it required. That's kind of interesting. Why is this complaining? Why is this complaining? Argument of type. Oh my god, look at that. Look at that error message. That's just unreadable. Oh, it's because this thing doesn't return the right. That's why. It's because this isn't returning the right format yet. Okay, so let's do some wishful coding here. So we'll say await const report of get reports client app ID, and then that, and then that. We don't have that method yet, but that's what we want it to look like when it's all said and done. So let's go to our utils folder, and let's make a new method for that. Export async function. We'll make this a generator. We'll say get reports. Sahit, what are you trying to build? I'm trying to build a model context protocol server. Is what I'm working on at the moment. Is this Vim or NeoVim? It is NeoVim, Pat G. It is NeoVim. Oh, Suhas has already answered both those questions. Thank you, Suhas. You are you're a helpful fella. Because I was locked in for a second. I kind of was ignoring you guys. Apologies for that. I don't mean to do that. There's like this balance, right, between like when you're live streaming and writing code. There's this difficult balance you have to kind of work with between like heads down focus, trying to make some progress, and also keeping an eye on chat. So I appreciate you, Suhas. Sahith, MCP server 4. Yeah, good question. So the company I work with is called OnSpring. We make a platform, a GRC platform, kind of like if you're familiar with ServiceNow, or if you're familiar with what would be the other, Archer Technologies. But we have a public API, so I know that API really well. And so I thought, well, I want to learn about building an MCP server. So let me build an MCP server that talks to an API that I know really well. And it's totally okay if you don't know what OnSpring is. But at a very like simplistic layer, right? OnSpring, in the purpose of what we're talking about here, you can think of OnSpring as just another database, another data store. And so they have an API that exposes that data through a REST interface. And so my MCP server is just basically doing that translation between whatever the conversation is that's happening in the client, extracting the inputs that are needed to go to the API and retrieve data from a particular instance of that software. So, but I'm learning a lot. I'm learning about MCP. It's actually, it's kind of funny if you've worked with, if any of you guys have worked with like Anthropic's API or OpenAI's API. They both have this concept of tool usage, right? I think OpenAI at one point was calling theirs functions or something like that. But it's very similar to that, right? If you've ever written code to talk to Anthropic's API, and that API can sometimes respond back to use a tool, it's much in the same vein of the style of code you'd write to facilitate that. But much more simplified, right? Because they're giving you a common abstraction layer of how to tell the LLM that there are these tools, and then they're also giving you a lot of helper at least in the SDKs. They're giving you a lot of helper methods and a lot of ways to validate the LLM input and use it. So it's very nice. Ollama is function calling. Yeah, so it's kind of that. Yeah, exactly. So if you're familiar with Ollama's function calling or Anthropic's tool use or any of those concepts, right? And I think that's why MCP is catching on, is because it makes so much more sense. Instead of you having to handle, like, say you want to use OpenAI, say you want to use Anthropic, you want to use Google's Gemini models. It makes much more sense, I think, to write tools once and expose them through a common abstraction rather than, like, Microsoft actually has an interesting SDK called Semantic Kernel, where they're trying to kind of make that easier for .NET developers to talk to all the different providers and provide like a common abstraction layer. But I think MCP takes it another step further, right? Now we're talking about a protocol or a standard that lives above a particular language or a particular, runtime. So I see why it's becoming. I see why it's gaining ground and why it's becoming popular. It's going to save people a lot of time, right? If you can write your tools, or if you can write, if you want to think of tools as like the hands and the arms of these LLMs, of these agents that people want to build, you can just write them once and then expose them to all the clients. Yeah, I really do think that. Yeah, I think it makes sense. It makes sense that we would head in this direction towards a common abstraction. And maybe MCP isn't it. Maybe somebody comes up with a better one, right? But at the moment, it seems like people are consolidating around this. So I think it behooves me to probably be in the know. All right. So what do we basically, Copilot should be able to fill this in quite a bit for me, because I basically need to do the same thing. Let's see, client. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's pretty close. That's pretty close, Copilot. Although I'm not going to get the app Oh, yeah, I am going to have the app ID. Yeah, and then there's the paging request. And I think this is okay, because there may be more than one page of reports, but there's not going to be 30,000 pages of reports. So I think it's okay if we just fetch all the reports at once and return them back. I don't think that's going to take too long. Okay. So now, crap, I always forget. It's leader FB? Yeah. Now we just need to import this that little utility function that we created. I really like this syntax. I really like async iterables in JavaScript and TypeScript. They're just, I don't see enough people using them. TG, is that Vim or Micro? It's NeoVim, if you can believe it. If you can believe it, it's NeoVim. NeoVim on the Windows machine in PowerShell. In Windows Terminal. Alright, let's try, let's restart my server here. And we'll rebuild my project too at the same time. Oh goodness, what have I done? Expected 0 arguments but got 1. Let's see. We want to go to the server. So why is this angry? Go to definition. I'm doing something wrong here. Oh, it's because I'm not, and it needs to know basically. It can't infer what I'm returning, so I need to actually type this as a tool callback. Since I'm not defining the tool inline. Server. There we go. Now everybody's happy. Which I'm still not sure if this is the right pattern I like for this. So like what I'm basically doing to make this testable is I have a get reports tool that returns me the tool so that in my test code I can actually validate the logic of the tool. And I can also inject in a client so I can mock the client behavior so I can do unit testing. I'm not sure if I like this pattern, but this is what I've come to at the moment. I probably need to do a little bit of looking at other MCP servers to see what other people are doing in order to make their stuff testable. Although, if you look at some of these MCPs, like let's go to MCP servers. Some of them don't have tests, from what I can tell. Like I was looking at the file system one. I think the file system one is written in TypeScript. And it doesn't have any tests. Which, I mean, you could argue, like, do you need tests? But, like, I like to write tests. But this one is just one large... It's just one large index.ts file. But I like to have a test suite. I know not everybody feels the same way. So Heath, I think you should await on promise.all instead of await on each. I guess I could do that. I could do like, I could span out and like get all the pages with a promise.all, but I kind of like the async iterable. Yeah, I'm a fan of the ergonomics there. It also you don't like Suhas, I have to write tests. Yeah, people should write tests. Yeah. Oh, you're saying your MCP doesn't have tests. Well, I mean there are professional projects. There's software that all of us pay and use every day that probably don't have great test suites, you know. Sahith. Oh, Sahith, what I was going to also say about the async iterable is one of the benefits of doing it that way is then I can reuse those methods that page through in cases where I don't want to get them all into memory at one time, right? Like when I'm searching for an app, a particular app ID, I have to page through all the apps to find the app I want, but I don't want to load all those apps up into memory, right? Like I don't want to pull them all down and load them all up. I just want to page through one at a time and look for what I'm looking for. So I appreciate your thought there, and you could definitely do that. I've done that in places, but in this particular use case, the async iterable makes a little bit more sense for me. All right, let's see if my tool works now. I should have what I need to get my reports. And that'll take us like right up to time. It's been a busy stream today, huh? Yeah, super busy stream. All right. So let's list our tools. God, this window's getting way too cramped, huh? They need like a way to collapse this. They need to update this inspector so that I can collapse it. Now let's see, get reports. Yep. We're gonna say we're still gonna do users. So let's see. There we go. Look, there's all the reports. So then what I'm hoping is then, right, you can imagine a natural language conversation where someone says, I need to know, I need to know how many active users are in my instance. And then hopefully the LLM might be able to say, oh, you have a report that's users by status. Would you like me to get that for you? Right? Or if you know the report by name, right? Then hopefully I'm going to build another tool that gets the report data. And so then the idea would be you could say, can you please get me the users by status report? And it could just fetch it by name. So I'll do that. That's the next tool I need to implement, is the actual data fetching. Oh man, I want to say hi, but your username is Buoy, maybe? Booyay, maybe? You said hi, so I say hi back, man. Thanks for stopping in the stream. Unfortunately, you showed up right at the end. We're actually getting, I think, ready to wrap up, but Suhas, on how employable am I? Suhas, that's a tough question for me to answer, bro. I don't know you well enough, I think, or your skill set well enough probably to give you an answer. I'm also probably not the best person to judge whether somebody is employable or not, right? I wish I could give you a better answer than that, but all right, let's write this out. Git add, git commit. What do? We added a git reports tool. Have any of you guys used Buoy? Yes, unfortunately at the end. Yeah, it's not like I'm not totally done yet, but yeah, it's like towards the end. But it's good to be here. It's good to have you here, man. I'll be live again tomorrow for sure. And if you want to hang out in our Discord, there's also a link to our Discord channel. I should probably actually check our Discord and see if we have any new requests to join. Oh yeah, we have one. Very cool. All right, peoples. That's gonna be it for me. That's it for my lunch break. So I'm gonna head back. To work. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I will be live tomorrow. I try to go live if you're new here. I try to go live like usually in the mornings for like an hour just to chat with y'all. And then I try to go live for about an hour in the afternoon during my lunch break and actually work on things. And sometimes there's a smattering of longer streams here and there, but for the most part, that's kind of the schedule I'm trying to stick to. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in a video or a short, or maybe another live stream. So, all right, guys, I'll talk to y'all later. See y'all. Bye.